Hello, freak bitches.
I do think we could be living in a simulation, as Elon Musk famously suggested. We could be all living in a computer simulation. I don't think it's likely, but it's completely plausible given what we know right now.
Right, the real issue is that one day we most likely will have something. As long as technology continues to exponentially advance, we'll one day have something that's indiscernible from the reality. They'll be able to interface, more than likely.
Yeah.
They'll be able to interface with your senses, with the way the mind perceives reality, and create something that passes that uncanny valley and literally feels like real life, like the Matrix or
I think
whatever.
that we might be very far, or we might be pretty close. I think it's hard to tell because there's so much we don't know right now. It's not like this is coming in the next 10 years.
But it could be 1,000 years.
But yeah, absolutely. And that it could, the thought experiment that helps people accept this is, a single neuron in your brain. You have something like, 100 billion neurons in your brain. But every single one is not that complicated. It takes in some inputs, it puts in some outputs. It might be work to figure out exactly what it does, but it's not mysterious, right? So we can imagine replacing one neuron in your brain with a solid state micro device that does exactly the same thing as that neuron. And you would be the same person, roughly speaking, right? Mm-hmm. So if you believe that, then do that with two neurons and do it with 3 neurons. And you're gradually building up who you are, but just replacing your brain with something that is machine-made. And if you believe that can happen, there's no reason to think that machines can't be as human as we want them to be.
Do you follow any of Ray Kurzweil stuff?
A little bit. I don't think that he's an especially deep thinker, but he's a good provocateur.
How dare you? How dare you? He's right now pounding on his desk.
It could be.
This motherfucker. You don't think he's an especially deep thinker? I mean, he's a brilliant guy. He's invented a bunch of really fascinating things.
Yeah, he likes to extrapolate without limit pretty fearlessly.
Well, he must have irritated you for you to jump right out with, I don't think he's a particularly deep thinker.
No, but I do think he serves a role. I think there are people who make us think more deeply, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I remember seeing a panel discussion with Murray Gell-Mann, who was a famous physicist, and Isaac Asimov. This was like 30 years ago when Asimov was still alive. And there was someone else who was on the panel, I forget it was, another physicist. And the amazing thing was, the science fiction author was by far the most conservative thinker up there in terms of what he thought would really be happening 1,000 years from now, right? The physicists had these way out ideas, and Asimov was like, I don't think it's going to be all that different, right? And it's just hard to predict the future accurately, and there's a role served both by trying to be as realistic as possible and careful and Bayesian and saying what are the probabilities and so forth. And there's another role served by just being the provocative and saying, well, maybe this crazy thing is going to happen. Maybe we'll cure death in the next 100 years and life will change for everybody dramatically.
That seems fairly likely, right? They're going to figure out some way to reverse aging.
Yeah, I think that's plausible. There's no biological reason why not.
Kurzweil's got some weird motivations, too. He literally wants to sort of rebuild his father.
Yeah.
Yeah. He wants to be able to piece together some sort of an artificial intelligence version of his father and go back and see him.
Yep.
That's deep.
That's a word for it, yeah.
Yeah. That's he thinks that there's going to come a time inside his lifetime, hopefully, that you'll be able to download consciousness. That consciousness is going to be something you'll transfer, sort of like code.
Yeah, I think that there's a difference between what is potentially possible given arbitrary amounts of time and resources, and what is realistic in the relatively near term. By the near term, we mean 50 or 100 years, right? And I think that people like Ray Kurzweil are far exaggerating what's going to be possible in the next 50 or 100 years because they underestimate how little we know about how the brain works, how important it is for the brain to be in our bodies, right? Mm-hmm. One of the breakthroughs in artificial intelligence over the last couple of decades was to realize that if you try to build an artificially intelligent computer, it becomes much more realistic if you give it a body, if you give it a face and it can interact with people. I mean, we underestimate the extent to which having a body is an important part of how we think and who we are. And this is just like such baby steps in understanding this stuff that to imagine that in the matter of decades we'll have it all figured out and have downloadable consciousnesses is not realistic to me.
Do you think that we have to absolutely understand the exact way that the human brain works in order to replicate its possibilities?
No, I mean, I think that we probably won't. That probably won't be the way that we make artificial consciousness or artificial intelligence. Like, we won't just be reconstructing human beings. Like, when we made cars, we didn't reconstruct horses, right? We just did it in a very, very different way. And cars are much better than horses in various ways. Not as good in other ways. Like
Going up hills.
Going up hills, but also, you know, in the early days of cars, one big complaint was, but if I'm drunk and passed out, it won't take me home all by itself, right?
Was that a complaint?
Yeah, that was a complaint, and
That's
it's true.
hilarious because the horse would just take you home and knows how to get there.
Exactly, and finally we'll get the artificial...
And nobody gets mad.
Self-driving cars will be able to do it finally.
If you're driving a horse drunk, nobody gives a shit.
No, you're passed out. That's right.
That had to be like a big adjustment for people.
Yeah, exactly.
No more driving drunk.
And so the idea that the way that we'll make artificial intelligence is to sort of mimic a human being is just crazy. No, that's not how it's going to be.
What do you think it's going to be like?
Well, I don't know. There are the problems that can be solved by things that we design are just a different set of problems than the thing that evolution naturally made us do, right? Like, evolution built a very, very general purpose machine that is inefficient and irrational in all sorts of ways. Like, anyone's pocket calculator since the 1970s can multiply numbers way better than your brain can, right? Your brain has enormously more computational capacity than a pocket calculator. Why can't we multiply numbers? That ability was not important back when we were evolving these things, right? So the set of things that it is easy to design is just very, very different than what the brain does. So who knows? I don't know exactly what it will look like. I actually think that the more important thing will be blurring the distinction between human beings and machines. You know, the crossovers. There's another one of Elon Musk's project is called the neural link. The idea of, you know, basically a neural lace, something that is just interfacing with your brain very, very, very fast so that you have access to the entire internet or whatever peripherals you want in real time. So like Wikipedia is part of your memory, essentially, and that's just who you are and how you walk around. And you can multiply numbers as fast as you want to.
That seems like very likely.
Yeah.
That augmented
real.
reality.
I think that's coming, yeah.
Yeah. And some sort of a weird symbiotic connection to the net and to electronics, whether it's a wearable thing or maybe even an embedded thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will be embedded eventually.
Think so?
Yeah, it's just more efficient.
Will you be one of the first adopters, or are you going to wait a little while?
I'm never a first-generation adopter even of iPhones, much less, you know, things embedded in my body. But look, I just adopted 2 kittens. They get microchip implants. Right?
Oh, yeah.
When you adopt a cat, it gets a microchip inside so you can't lose it.
Yeah.
And so to think that we're very far away from doing that, I don't think is right. I think that we're going to be doing things.
I was just looking at a laptop bag. It's a laptop bag that also is, you have a passport bag and a laptop bag and then a carry-on and then a check and stow, you know, for airplane luggage. And all of it is Bluetooth and all of it is location coordinated with GPS so that if somehow or another your bag gets lost, you literally can go on a computer and it'll show you where your bag is.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, how long are we going to, when are we going to do that with people?
And I feel, you know, I'm a big believer in privacy rights and so forth.
Her dilemma. Do I let my employer microchip me? What is this?
There you go.
There's a company in Wisconsin that had microchip day on August 1st, and they implanted microchips in people.
First of all, that dude with his ears and those fucking earplugs in the lower ear lobe thing, you ain't doing nothing, buddy. You ain't sticking that in me. Look what you've done to your ears, fella. Wisconsin company becomes first U.S. employee. What?
And these are very simple, just location tracking things, right?
Yeah, but why would you allow the company to do that? I wouldn't allow my company to tattoo me. Why would I allow my company to microchip me?
It's for tracking, and you can also, like, they can buy stuff in the cafeteria and whatnot.
Yeah, you know what else you could do? Use your wallet.
You say that, but, you know,
gross.
Do you turn off all cookies when you have your laptop on in your browser?
Yes, I do. No, I don't.
You don't, because it's a little convenient.
Yeah.
And these guys say, like, they can buy their snacks with their microchip. They just walk up to the machine and get a snack.
But here's where the separation
worth every loss of
this laptop, I can go like that, and then I can walk out the door, and that laptop stays here. And all the cookies and all my browser history stays here. Mm-hmm. It's not under my fingernail.
That's just what they want you to think. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Now you're freaking me out.